On my daughter's engagement dinner, her smug fiancé Derek clinked his glass, drew every eye in the restaurant, and introduced me to the room as a washed-up man who spends his retirement polishing old tools in a dusty garage. Laughter rippled through the tables. Not loud, not cruel, just that polite kind of laughter people give when they don't know if it's a joke. My daughter Emma froze, her smile faltering, her hand tightening around her wine glass. I kept my face still, my fork resting neatly on the plate. Years of discipline taught me never to flinch at the first blow. And then, from the head of the hall, a voice cut the air clean in half. "Is that what you think he is?" The room hushed. A tall man in a tailored navy suit rose from his seat. He walked over slowly, each step commanding attention. Conversations died. Forks were set down. Even the waiters froze in place. Derek's smirk faltered when the man stopped beside me, extended a hand, and said firmly, "Good to see you again, partner." The word partner hung in the air like a thunderclap. He clapped me on the shoulder, then turned his gaze to Derek. His smile sharpened. "Strange way to talk about the man who bankrolled your first company, Derek. Very strange." A murmur swept through the room. Derek's face drained of color. His jaw tightened as he stammered, "Sir, I didn't mean—" But the man, Mr. Collins, the CEO Derek idolized and bragged about endlessly, cut him off with a cold, deliberate shake of his head. "You're fired." The words were final, echoing off the restaurant's walls. Emma gasped. Guests whispered. Derek's glass slipped in his hand and clinked hard against the table. His arrogance, his perfect composure, it all shattered in a second. I sat quietly, my expression calm, though inside me burned a steady fire. I hadn't asked for this moment, but fate had delivered it anyway. The applause that followed wasn't loud, but it was enough. Enough to bury Derek under the weight of humiliation. As the guests turned back to their meals, the waiter appeared and guided us to a smaller table tucked in the corner near the window. The Lakeview grill glimmered with candlelight, the lake outside shimmering with the reflection of a half-moon. I sat down first, keeping my posture composed. Derek smoothed his tie with shaky hands before lowering himself into the chair opposite me. Emma followed, her engagement ring catching the light as she fiddled nervously with her napkin. For a moment, silence pressed heavy between us. Then Derek forced a dry chuckle, trying to regain control. "So, Mr. Wood," he began, not waiting for the waiter to return with our drinks. "Nancy tells me you're between opportunities right now." I blinked once, slowly. His arrogance was cracked but not broken, not yet. And as I looked into Derek Harrington's eyes, I realized something important. This battle had only just begun. The Lakeview grill hummed with polite chatter, the clinking of glasses, the low swell of a piano drifting from the far corner. Waiters glided between tables in crisp black uniforms, balancing trays of steaming entrees, but our little corner table sat in its own bubble of tension. Emma shifted uncomfortably between us, smoothing the napkin across her lap as if she could iron out the jagged silence. She looked beautiful that night, radiant, in a way only a woman in love could be, but her eyes carried the shadow of unease. She knew me, she knew Derek, and she feared the collision that was inevitable. Derek sat across from me, shoulders stiff, eyes sharp with a mixture of arrogance and embarrassment. He had been humiliated in front of the crowd, stripped of his bravado by his own boss. But men like Derek didn't crumble easily. They rebuilt their masks quickly, brick by brick, word by word. He reached for his glass, his fingers tapping the stem before lifting it. His hand trembled slightly, though he tried to disguise it with a swift swallow of the wine. Half the glass vanished in one gulp. Emma broke the silence.
Dad, Derek didn't mean anything earlier?
He was just nervous. Her voice was light, fragile, almost pleading. I didn't answer right away. My gaze stayed steady on Derek. Nervous, I said finally, my tone calm, almost curious. Interesting choice of words. Derek gave a low chuckle, leaning forward as if eager to show he was back in control. Look, Mr. Wood, maybe I came on too strong earlier. Big dinner, important guests, pressure in the air. You know how it is. Sometimes jokes don't land the way we want. His smirk twitched, but there was something in his eyes. Defiance, maybe even challenge. Jokes, I repeated evenly, the word heavy in my mouth. Emma touched his arm, her voice sharper now. Derek, please. Don't start again. But Derek didn't stop. Men like him never stopped when they smelled weakness, even if it was their own. They doubled down. The waiter arrived with a fresh bottle, pouring each of us a glass. Derek seized his quickly, swirling the deep red liquid, staring at it as though the wine might give him courage. He set the glass down deliberately, then fixed me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. You've had quite the reputation, Liam. People used to talk about your business deals like they were legend. Ruthless, sharp, unbeatable. But that was, what, 15 years ago? 20? Emma's head snapped toward him, her eyes flashing. Derek! But he leaned back, feigning casual, the corner of his mouth twitching upward. I mean, times change. People change. You're not the man you used to be. That's not an insult. It's just reality. You know, people fade. The world moves on. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just held his gaze steady, unbroken. Finally, I said, my voice low but firm, reality has a way of correcting itself, Derek. For the first time, his smirk slipped, just slightly. Emma looked from me to him, her hands wringing the napkin in her lap. Please, can we have one dinner without turning it into a battlefield? The table fell quiet again, but this time the silence wasn't awkward. It was loaded, like a chessboard mid-game. Each of us waiting for the other to move. The piano from across the room shifted into a slower tune. A couple near the window laughed softly over dessert. Glasses clinked at a table behind us. The world moved on. But at our table, time felt suspended, every breath deliberate. Derek finally broke the silence, his voice smooth but edged with something darker. You'll see, Liam, things are changing. The future belongs to people willing to take it. My eyes narrowed slightly, but before I could reply, a vibration buzzed against my leg. I slid my hand into my pocket, pulling out my phone. The glow of the screen illuminated a single new message from an unknown number. Watch him carefully. He's hiding more than you think. The words were simple, but they sliced through me. My breath caught for a fraction of a second. I looked up slowly. Derek was leaning close to Emma, whispering something that made her laugh nervously, her hand brushing his. His performance was flawless, polished, charming. To anyone else in the restaurant, he was the picture of a perfect fiancé. But I knew masks. I'd worn enough in my lifetime to recognize one when I saw it. And now someone else, someone unseen, was warning me that Derek's mask hid far more than arrogance. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, my face unreadable. My years in business had trained me well. Never show the tremor. Never reveal the crack. Let the opponent think you're blind until it's too late. Derek caught my eye then, his smirk returning, faint but pointed. A silent challenge. Emma looked at me, her eyes pleading again. Don't fight him. But the fight had already begun. And as I lifted my wine glass, holding his gaze over the rim, I thought, if Derek believes tonight was his worst humiliation, he hasn't seen anything yet. The night at Lakeview Grill was supposed to end with polite goodbyes, champagne toasts, maybe even a speech about love and family. But instead, we left the restaurant in silence. the three of us walking to the valet stand like actors who'd forgotten their lines. Emma clung to Derek's arm. Her smile stretched too wide, brittle as glass. She was desperate to keep the illusion intact, but her eyes betrayed her. She darted nervous glances at me, then at Derek, like a child watching two wolves circle each other. Derek, on the other hand, had recovered. The humiliation from his boss had stung, but his arrogance was a shield. He wore it again with ease, laughing too loudly at nothing, running a hand through his slicked back hair, pretending as if he still held the upper hand. I knew better. The valet pulled up with Derek's black Mercedes, polished so bright it gleamed under the restaurant lights. Derek slipped 100 into the valet's palm with exaggerated flair, ensuring I saw, a performance like everything else. "Take care of her," he said smugly to the boy, nodding toward the car. "She's my most valuable possession." Emma's smile faltered. "Derek," she whispered, tugging his arm. He chuckled, kissed her cheek, then turned to me. "Don't worry, Liam. I'll make sure Emma's taken care of. She won't have to worry about a thing." I held his gaze, my voice calm but edged with steel. "That's exactly what worries me." His smirk lingered, but his eyes flashed, just for a second, with something harder. Then he ushered Emma into the car and slid behind the wheel. I watched them drive off into the night, the taillights glowing red against the dark street. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Same unknown number. He's already in deeper than she knows. If you don't act, she'll pay the price. I stood there for a long time, the chill of the night cutting through my jacket. My instincts screamed. I'd spent a lifetime reading people, dissecting lies, surviving betrayals. Derek wasn't just arrogant, he was dangerous. The next morning, Emma came to visit. She brought a basket of pastries from the bakery she loved, setting them carefully on the table like a peace offering. "Dad," she began, her voice soft, "I know last night was tense, but you can't keep treating Derek like the enemy. He's trying." I studied her, the way her hands twisted in her lap, the flicker of doubt in her eyes. She wanted to believe her words, but doubt gnawed at her. "Emma," I said gently, "tell me honestly. Are you happy?" She hesitated, just for a heartbeat, but it was enough. "Yes," she said too quickly. "Of course I am. Derek loves me. He provides for me. He's ambitious. That's not a bad thing. Ambition isn't the problem," I replied. "It's what a man is willing to sacrifice for it." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "You're judging him too harshly. You don't see what I see." "I see more than you think," I said. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and her expression changed, tightened, guarded. She excused herself, stepping into the hallway to answer. Through the thin wall, I could hear fragments of her voice. "Yes, I'll meet you later." "No, he doesn't know." When she returned, her smile was back, too bright again. "I should go, Dad. Derek's waiting." I didn't stop her, but as the door closed behind her, I felt the weight of the warning text pressing heavier on my chest. Emma was in deeper than she realized, and Derek was pulling strings I couldn't see yet. That evening I began digging. Old habits die hard. A few calls to contacts I hadn't spoken to in years. A quiet request here, a favor there. Derek Harrington wasn't just a cocky fiancé, he had a trail. And where there was a trail, there were secrets. By midnight, one thing was clear. Whoever was texting me wasn't exaggerating. Derek's business empire wasn't built on brilliance. It was built on debt, manipulation, and shadows, and my daughter was standing right in the middle of it. By the time dawn broke, I had a list of names, dates, and numbers scribbled across a yellow notepad that hadn't seen use in years. Old instincts returned as naturally as breathing. People thought retirement meant I had walked away from the game. The truth was, I had only stepped out of the spotlight. And now Derek Harrington had dragged me back in.
The first call I'd made was to an old associate.
A banker who owed me more favors than he could count. He'd hesitated at first, mumbling about confidentiality, until I reminded him of a certain file he'd never want unearthed. His tone shifted immediately. "Derek Harrington?" he repeated, his voice low. "You don't want to tangle with him." "I already am," I said. "Start talking." There was a pause, the faint rustle of papers. On paper he looks clean. Successful investments, flashy partnerships. But scratch the surface and you'll find the rot. He's leveraged beyond sanity, borrowing from one pocket to cover debts in another. He's holding up a mansion built on matchsticks. "And if the wind blows too hard?" I asked. "It all collapses," the banker whispered. I jotted notes quickly, each word confirming the knot in my gut. Later that day, I sat in the back booth of a small cafe on the edge of town. The place hadn't changed in years. Same cracked leather seats, same faded photographs on the wall. Across from me sat Clara, an old contact from my days in the industry. She'd traded the boardroom for private consulting, but her memory was sharp as ever. "Derek Harrington?" she said, raising an eyebrow. "He's got charm. I'll give him that. But charm is the cheapest currency." I leaned forward. "What do you know?" She stirred her coffee, considering. "Rumor is, he's connected to people you don't want to owe money to. Men who don't send reminders by mail. He's playing high-stakes games with borrowed chips." "Does Emma know?" I asked quietly. Clara's eyes softened. "Doubt it. Men like Derek don't show their true hand until it's too late." I sat back, the weight of her words settling on me. My daughter was walking into a storm blindfolded. That evening, Emma invited me to dinner at their apartment. She was eager, nervous, almost desperate for me to see the real Derek. The place was immaculate, glass furniture, modern art, the kind of sterile luxury that screamed, "Look how successful I am." Derek greeted me with a wide smile, a glass of scotch in his hand. "Liam, glad you could make it. Emma's been telling me I need to win you over. So, tonight's about family." He wrapped an arm around Emma's shoulders, pulling her close. She smiled, but I noticed the way her body tensed under his touch. Dinner was a performance. Derek played the doting fiancé perfectly, refilling Emma's glass, complimenting her cooking, telling exaggerated stories about his business triumphs. Emma laughed, her eyes shining with hope that I might finally approve, but I'd already seen behind the curtain. Every word out of Derek's mouth was a carefully rehearsed line. At one point his phone buzzed. He excused himself to take the call in the next room, lowering his voice. I pretended not to notice, but years of listening had honed my ear. Through the thin wall I caught fragments. "No, I told you, the payment's coming. Just keep them quiet. Don't let this leak." When he returned, his smile was back in place, his tone smooth. "Apologies. Business never sleeps." Emma brushed it off, eager to resume the facade, but my mind was racing. The unknown number had been right. Derek wasn't just hiding debt. He was juggling something dangerous, something that could swallow Emma whole. I caught his eye across the table. For the briefest moment, the mask slipped. Just a flicker of irritation, a flash of the predator beneath. And I knew then that this wasn't just about my daughter's happiness. It was about survival. Derek Harrington wasn't simply a mistake. He was a threat. 2 nights after the dinner, I decided to stop waiting. Derek had been circling Emma like a hawk, keeping her close, tightening his grip. If I didn't move first, she'd be swallowed by his storm before she even knew it was coming. I chose neutral ground, a downtown bar, dimly lit, discreet. I knew Derek would show up. Men like him couldn't resist a chance to prove their dominance. I sent a single message. "Meet me tonight, alone. 9 p.m. O'Malley's." When he walked in, he carried himself like a man who owned the room. Sharp suit, gold watch glinting under the low lights. the swagger of someone who believed the world bent around him. He spotted me instantly and made his way over, sliding into the booth across from me. "You've got some nerve," he said, leaning back. "Texting me like that. Emma doesn't know, does she?" "No," I said evenly. "And she won't, if you play this right." He smirked, flagging down the bartender with 2 fingers. "So this is the part where the protective father gives me the speech, right? The whole stay away from my daughter routine." "Spare me, Liam, I've heard it before." The bartender brought his drink. Derek sipped it, eyes glinting. "But here's the thing, you can't stop me. Emma chose me. She trusts me, and she doesn't trust you." I let him savor his arrogance a moment, longer before sliding a folder across the table. His smile faltered as he looked down. Inside were copies of documents I'd gathered, loan records, shell company ties, a list of unpaid debts connected to names even he would recognize. "Cute," he muttered, flipping through them with forced nonchalance. "Digging into my business? Must have taken you all night, Grandpa." "Not long," I said quietly. "Because dirt rises fast when someone's drowning in it." His jaw tightened. "You think you know me?" "I know enough," I replied. "Enough to see the truth behind the mask. You're not building an empire. You're patching holes in a sinking ship. And you're dragging Emma onto the deck without telling her the water's already waist deep." His glass slammed against the table, liquid sloshing over the rim. A few heads turned, but he waved them off with a tight smile before leaning in close, his voice low and dangerous. "You listen to me, old man. You want to play detective, fine. But if you think you can scare me out of Emma's life, you're wrong. She's mine, and no file folder changes that." I didn't flinch. I leaned forward, my voice steady. "Emma isn't property. She's my daughter. And if you hurt her, if you even think of pulling her into your schemes, I'll bury you with the same shovel." I used to build my fortune. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. His eyes burned into mine, cold and venomous. But beneath it, I saw the flicker of something else, fear. He finished his drink in one swallow, set the glass down hard, and stood. "You just made a mistake, Liam. A mistake you won't get to fix." He stalked out of the bar, his mask cracking at the edges. I watched him go, my gut heavy. Derek wasn't the type to retreat quietly. He'd strike back, and soon. As I sat in the dim booth, my phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Good move. But he's more dangerous than you know. Watch your back." For the first time in years, a chill crawled down my spine. I had faced cutthroats, liars, and thieves, but Derek was something else. A man who believed he could rewrite the rules. And now the war had begun. The silence from Emma lasted all morning. I stared at my phone more times than I could count, watching the blank screen like a battlefield waiting for the first shot. Every second of quiet felt like Derek tightening another knot around her. At noon, the phone finally buzzed. "Dad?" Her voice was cautious, clipped. Relief hit me first, then unease. "Emma, I've been calling." "Why didn't you—" "I couldn't," she cut me off quickly. "Derek said it would be better if I gave you space." My grip on the phone tightened. "Space?" "Yes," she said, her tone rehearsed like she was reciting lines. "You're too intense. You're always looking for problems where there aren't any. Derek thinks—" "Stop," I said firmly. "Don't tell me what Derek thinks. Tell me what you think." There was silence. For a moment I thought she might open up, that maybe she was still the little girl who used to come running to me when she skinned her knees, who trusted me to fix anything. Finally, she whispered, "Dad, I just want to be happy." "Derek makes me happy." "You're sure?" I asked softly. "Yes," she said, but the word cracked in the middle. I closed my eyes, my heart heavy. "Emma, happiness built on lies won't last." Her breath hitched. Then her voice hardened, defensive. "This isn't about Derek. This is about you not being able to let go. You don't trust anyone. Because I know what betrayal looks like, I said. She didn't answer. The line went dead. I sat in the quiet, staring at my reflection in the dark phone screen. Derek was good, too good. He knew how to twist words, how to turn her doubts into loyalty. He'd drawn the line clearly now. Emma had to choose between us. And she wasn't choosing me. By evening, the walls of my study felt like they were closing in. Files and notepads were spread across my desk. Names and numbers scribbled in hurried ink. I'd built empires on information, and I would use the same weapon now to dismantle Derek's world. My phone buzzed on the desk. Another message from the unknown number. He's isolating her. Don't give up. He's moving fast. If you want to understand what he's really into, check the warehouse on 7th and Lincoln. I stared at the words, my pulse quickening. Whoever this was, they weren't just feeding me rumors. They had eyes on Derek. I grabbed my coat and headed into the night. The warehouse loomed like a relic of another age. Its brick walls were streaked black from decades of soot. The chain-link fence sagging in places. A faded sign hung crooked over the entrance. Harrington and Cobra's storage, so Derek wasn't just using it, he owned it. I parked a block away, killed the lights, and walked the rest. The gravel crunched under my shoes, every step echoing too loudly in the empty street. The wind whistled through broken windows high above, carrying the scent of oil and rust. I slipped inside through a side door, the hinges groaning softly. The air was thick, heavy with dust. Stacks of crates rose like towers casting long shadows. In the distance I heard voices. I moved closer, my back against cold concrete, listening. "On Harrington's late again," one man said, his voice gravelly. "He thinks we're his babysitters." A second voice, sharper, answered, "He's got 48 hours. If he doesn't pay, we make an example." The first man laughed bitterly. "You mean the girl? The fiancé? That'll get him moving." My stomach clenched. "Emma," a phone rang. One of the men answered, his words slicing through the dark. "Where the hell are you, Harrington? You think you can stall us forever? No, 48 hours. After that, we take what's ours." Silence as he listened. Then a final growl. "Pray we don't decide to collect early." The line clicked dead. Boots echoed on the concrete floor as the men walked deeper into the warehouse. I stayed frozen in the shadows, my heartbeat thundering. Every instinct screamed at me to follow, to learn more, but caution held me back. One wrong move and Emma would pay the price. I slipped out the way I came, every nerve on fire. Back home, I poured myself a glass of water, but it sat untouched on the counter. My hands gripped the edge of the sink as the reality sank in. Derek wasn't just drowning in debt, he was tangled with people who would burn everything he had to ash, and they wouldn't hesitate to use Emma as leverage. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number. "Now you understand. He's desperate, and desperate men destroy everything around them. Protect her." I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. This wasn't about proving Derek unworthy anymore. It wasn't about pride or fatherly suspicion. This was survival, and if I didn't move fast, I was going to lose my daughter. The message still glowed on my screen, its words burning into me like fire. "Now you understand. He's desperate, and desperate men destroy everything around them. Protect her." I stood there in the dim light of my kitchen, my reflection warped in the glass of water I hadn't touched. My hands were steady, but my heart raced. Emma's life was no longer tethered just to Derek's arrogance. It was tied to his downfall, to deaths and criminals who saw her as nothing more than leverage. And I knew then I had 48 hours to save my daughter. The next morning I rose before dawn. The city outside was gray, silent, waiting. I sat at my desk, staring at the scattered papers, contracts, and names I'd pulled together. Years of silence, of being underestimated. had given me something Derek never had: patience. I wasn't just going to expose him. I was going to dismantle him, piece by piece, publicly, and the stage would be his own wedding. The hours blurred together in a frenzy of calls, favors, and old contacts. Not many people still owed me, but those who did owed big. By midday, I had Derek's financial records in my hand. Accounts drained, assets mortgaged to the bone, and then the jewel, a series of offshore transfers, tracing money from Harrington and Co. straight into accounts tied to known criminal fronts. It wasn't business. It was laundering. And Emma was sleeping next to the man who made her future a bargaining chip and backroom deals. But I needed more. Cold, undeniable proof. That's when the phone buzzed again. Tonight, meet me at the pier. Midnight, come alone. The unknown number. The mysterious ally who'd been feeding me. Threads of the truth. The pier groaned under the weight of the tide. The black water slapping against the wooden supports. The night smelled of salt and diesel, heavy and damp. A figure emerged from the shadows, hands deep in his coat pockets. "Mr. Wood," he said. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. He stepped into the pale glow of a lamppost, and my breath caught. It was Collins, Derek's boss, the same man who'd humiliated him in the restaurant. "You?" I asked, stunned. He nodded. "You're not the only one Derek's crossed. He thinks he's clever, but he's been sloppy. He's bled money out of the company, stolen deals, buried debts in our name. I've had enough." He pulled a small device from his pocket. A recorder. He pressed play. Derek's voice spilled into the night air, sharp and desperate. "Listen, I'll get the money. My fiancé's father has connections. He'll come through. Just give me until after the wedding." I felt cold down to my bones. Derek had been dragging Emma into his schemes from the beginning. Collins clicked the recorder off. "I'll testify if needed, but you'll need more than my word to bury him." "I have the rest," I said quietly. "Financials, transfers, enough to put him away." Collins studied me, then nodded. "Good, use it wisely, because once you move, there's no going back." "There never was," I answered. The church bells tolled, their chimes cutting through the morning like knives. Rows of guests in fine suits and dresses filled the pews, whispers rising like smoke. I stood at the back, watching Emma walk down the aisle, her dress trailing like white fire, her face glowing with nervous joy. She was beautiful, my little girl, and she was about to tie herself to a man who would drag her into ruin. Derek stood at the altar, grinning like a wolf in silk. His eyes flicked over the crowd, pausing on me. His smirk widened. He thought he'd already won. The ceremony blurred, vows spoken, rings exchanged. But my mind was elsewhere, on the flash drive in my pocket, heavy as a gun. And then came the reception, the stage I had chosen. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, tables lined with gold and white. Champagne flowed like water, laughter bouncing off the walls. Derek raised his glass, tapping the crystal with a silver fork. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice smooth, commanding, "thank you for joining us on this perfect day. And thank you especially to my beautiful bride and her father, Mr. Liam Wood." The crowd clapped politely. Derek's smile turned sharp. "Now, many of you may not know, but Liam here has fallen on hard times. He's a man past his prime, living in memories of what he once was. But today we welcome him back into the fold of family." Laughter rippled through the room, cruel and light. Emma's face flushed, her eyes darting between me and Derek. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the marble floor. "Is that so, Derek?" He smirked. "Of course. You'll always be welcome at our table, as long as you remember your place." Gasps rose from the crowd. Emma looked horrified. "Derek, stop!" But I didn't give him the chance. I pulled the small black flash drive from my pocket and held it up. "My place," I said, my voice carrying across the room. isn't beside you, Derek. It's above you. Because unlike you, I don't build my life on lies.
The room went silent.
All eyes locked on us. I signaled to the DJ. He hesitated, then plugged the drive into the system. The speakers crackled, then Derek's own voice filled the room. And my fiancé's father has connections. He'll come through. Just give me until after the wedding. Gasps, murmurs, faces turned. Emma's eyes went wide, her bouquet trembling in her hands.
That's not me,
Derek barked, his voice rising. That's fake, it's... But Collins rose from his seat at the front table, his face like stone. It's real. Every word. And I can prove it. The crowd erupted. Derek lunged toward Collins, but security moved faster. Guests shrieked, chairs scraping as men in dark suits pinned Derek to the ground. His face twisted, his hair falling loose, spittle flying from his lips.
You don't know who you're dealing with,
he screamed. I have power, money. You'll all regret this. But the men only tightened their grip. One leaned close, whispering something in Derek's ear that drained the color from his face. Emma stumbled back, her eyes brimming with tears, staring at the man she'd thought she loved. Derek, what did you do? He froze, then looked at her with something close to desperation. Emma, please. I did it for us, for our future. You have to believe me. But Emma shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. Our future? You were willing to sell me to them, to use me as leverage. You never loved me. You loved what I could give you. Her voice cracked. We're done. Derek sagged in the guard's grip, his eyes dead, his smirk gone. Emma turned to me then, broken and trembling. Dad, I didn't listen. I thought you were bitter, jealous. But you were right. You were always right. I stepped forward, wrapping her in my arms, holding her like I had when she was small. No, Emma, I didn't want to be right. I just wanted you safe. She sobbed against my shoulder, and for the first time in years, the walls between us crumbled. Around us, the crowd murmured, the weight of truth settling like dust. Derek was dragged from the hall, his protests fading into silence. By the end of the night, the ballroom was nearly empty. Emma sat beside me, her hands still trembling, her ring finger bare. What happens now? She whispered. Now, I said softly, you rebuild. On your own terms, with people who truly love you. She nodded, her head resting against my shoulder. Outside, the city glowed, alive and endless. A new dawn waited, but as I looked out into the night, my phone buzzed one last time. Well played, Mr. Wood, but remember, Derek was only a symptom. The disease runs deeper, and they know your name now. The message vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only the reflection of my own tired face staring back at me. I tightened my grip around Emma. Whatever storm was coming, I would face it. Because I wasn't just a father. I was a fighter, and this war was only beginning.